This computer. Three. There we go. 3, 2, 1. And hello and welcome to the next episode of the ADHD Men Support Group / Spiritual Gentleman podcast. I am Dave, your host, and today's guest is a dear friend of mine and also one of our new mods in the ADHD Men Support Group, Mr. Marlon Manalese. Am I pronouncing that last name correctly?
Yes, you are.
Awesome. Oh, fantastic. All right. That was first stab.
Yeah.
Yeah, so welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for taking the opportunity to speak with me today. So the first thing I would love to get to know is, could you tell me a bit about your story with ADHD and like how you found out about it, maybe some bit of like your background, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah, sure. Well, in school, I've always had trouble paying attention because, most teachers were pretty boring. I could count on one hand how many teachers I've actually liked throughout my entire life. And I found that I did the best in their classes because they found ways to make learning fun and engaging, right? But most of the time, I struggled to do my homework, couldn't find the motivation to do it. I was first diagnosed with depression when I was 14, because that was around the time I was getting bullied in school. And I would be the one getting suspended because I would fight back. And that's all the teachers would see is me fighting back. And yeah, I just found that super unfair and all that stuff. But moving forward, I didn't get diagnosed with ADHD until I was 16. I can't remember how that process went, but I don't know which teacher alerted like the school psychologist about it. But yeah, I did some tests with a psychologist.
Was this in Canada, right?
In Canada, yeah, in
Yeah,
high
yeah,
school,
yeah. Okay.
during high school. And yeah, they just, they're like, hey, they just told me we're diagnosing you with ADHD. We've noticed these symptoms in you. And I did a bunch of tests where I was required to I can't remember what they were. I think it was like pictures, and I'm supposed to put them in order, like as a narrative, and then something with connecting dots in certain shapes. I can't remember exactly, but they surmised that, yeah, I have ADHD. And at the time, they were gonna prescribe like Adderall or Ritalin to me, and I was just like, no, I don't want to do that because all my life you've been telling me to not do drugs in school, and now you're giving them to me. I was just pure rebel. I'm like, screw this. ADHD isn't real, and you just want to, drug me up instead of making your classes more interesting. So screw you guys, right? And yeah, for many years of my life, especially in my 20s, I pretty much tried to white knuckle my life through, or my white knuckle it through ADHD, just denying that I had it. I'm just like, how can I have ADHD if I could play video games for 8 straight hours? And
Yeah.
later down the line, I found out that hyperfocus is one of the symptoms. It's a very paradoxical condition. But I tried to deny that I have it, but I don't know, just naturally throughout my late 20s, I started doing some things that would counteract it. Like, even without saying that I have ADHD, I knew that I'd get distracted easily. So I started zeroing my inbox and my junk mail on a daily basis. I removed all my icons on my desktop wallpaper, except for the recycling bin. Like, even before I accepted, like, yeah, maybe I do have ADHD and it is real, I was already putting things in place that would prevent myself from getting distracted. I also turn off. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I would love to ask you too, like, so during this kind of white knuckling kind of phase, as you're like, all right, trying to figure it out, what was kind of the aha moment that happened where you were like, okay, I got like, you know what, I have to accept this ADHD. And another question I also was curious too, because I relate to you, especially about in high school with like the teachers. So I was actually kicked out of high school my junior year. Not out of one high school. I was kicked out of actually 2 high schools. I was going to a culinary school for half the day, and I was going to a private school. I had no interest in my private school whatsoever, and my public school, which was the culinary program, was the thing that I was hyper focused on. No one communicated with them, so I was getting slips that I could get out of like my regular school. So I took full advantage of the system. Towards the end of the year, they realized my private school had realized I'd missed all this class from them. And in my at the culinary school, I had a really bad day one day where my ADHD really flared up, and I yelled at the teacher, and he said I threatened him with a knife. So they called in the counselors, the principals, and then the other school had to get involved, and I ended up getting kicked out of school. But I negotiated 3 A's out of the class because the vice principals actually liked me because I was the guy. So I was hyper focused on it, right? I was like, this is the first time I'm learning about like I actually enjoy school, and then so I totally get when you get like those teachers like, I want you to do this, and then at that 16-year-old age, you're like, oh,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
you're just like, all right, like you don't get me, you don't understand where I'm at.
Yeah.
So did that have a lot to do with kind of like the repression of be like, all right, oh, ADHD, oh, you don't know who I am. And then
Yeah.
how did that what kind of like, what were your white knuckling? You were talking a bit about your white knuckling process of kind of like deleting all your inbox and like your spam folder, which I think I still need to do because I'm like, that shit piles up so much. Um, so what was like kind of the aha moment that you were like, okay, I need to deal with this?
The aha moment was like last year when I was in a Discord server, and this server had like a 1v1 channel, so only two people could enter it. And this girl needed some support, and she said she was struggling with her ADHD because she was like taking different doses for medication. And yeah, still to that point, I'm like, it's not real. It's just teachers are boring and, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just, lazy and undisciplined. But then she started talking about how she would be super productive for 1 week and then burnt out for another week or two after that. And then I'm like, oh shit, that's what I go through, especially in my late 20s after I've um, quit my job, or a couple jobs that I had back then. Yeah, I would try to stay productive or whatever by like journaling, studying Korean, and writing a novel. And same thing would happen to me. I would be super productive 1 week, going to the library every day, doing all three: journaling, Korean, novel. And then I'd burn out for like 2 to 4 weeks and be like, why? How did that happen? So when I talked to this woman and she was describing her experience, I'm like, it was the first time in my life where I finally didn't feel so alone, because I'm like, oh, that's my entire life. Because throughout my 20s, I would only have a job for maybe a year or two before I'd burn out and just take another year or two off after that to just recuperate. Even after I had two jobs that I really loved, one was a sales job and the other one was managing an escape room. I really, really love those jobs because, yeah, I loved all the customers I got to talk to. I took those jobs on specifically to battle my social anxiety, and yeah, I was really proud of how much like personal growth I was able to go through. But yeah, even with the jobs that I did love, there were times where there was like too many customers or there were too many things going wrong. It's got to be ADHD overwhelm. So when this woman told me about her experiences, I'm like, oh shit, that's what I've been going through all these years. And I've been denying that I even have this thing, but maybe I should take it more seriously now.
Oh wow. And then so what did you do so after you had this aha moment, you're like, oh wow, actually I'm not alone in the universe. This is actually a real thing. What were some of the steps that you kind of started working on after that moment?
After that moment, for a while, I'm just like, yeah, I guess maybe I do have it. And it's kind of good that I, cleared my phone of notifications so that, Facebook, YouTube, I get nothing. I get no sounds, no badges on the screen, nothing. I have to go into those apps to see them. But I'm like, I'm glad that I did that, cleaning my inbox, cleaning my desktop wallpaper. That's great and all. It wasn't until a few months after that where I started dating this woman. Not the same woman that was with the ADHD, just someone else. And I don't really want to get to that because that's a huge long story. But it was around the same time that I was starting to learn that ADHD comes with like emotional dysregulation and rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So like in this relationship, I guess I'll touch the surface of it, but
Yeah.
basically we were so insecure within ourselves that we kind of needed each other to reassure each other of each other's worth. right? These are, she would remind me of like, oh, you're a good conversationalist, you're kind of a leader and all that stuff. These are things that I was striving to be, but sometimes I would get imposter syndrome, which ding, 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 another ADHD, symptom,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, like my relationship with this woman was so turbulent, and it's just so ironic that I did something out of anger. I can't remember what it was, but maybe I'm blocking it out for now, even though I went into great detail about it in my journals. Um, I did or said something in like complete impulsivity, and I'm like, maybe it's the ADHD. And she suggested to me, that maybe I should start therapy. And like the irony is like, hey, thanks for suggesting therapy, because after everything you did to me, I'm gonna need it, right? But this woman caused me a lot of problems. Like, look,
Yeah.
I will appreciate the kind of criticism that she would give me and kind of force me to like look into myself, because that was helpful. I saw all the problems that I was causing in our relationship and where they were coming from. But whenever she did something and I'm like, hey, maybe something in your past is getting triggered from this, she wouldn't do the work. Like, she could dish it out, but she couldn't take it. But anyways, that aside, yeah, after one big fight of ours, I started searching like ADHD specific therapists, and I found mine. And like right away, I just, from her picture, from her profile, I just liked the vibe. And yeah, that was the first step I took, was finding a therapist online. I kept her in mind for about a month, but I thought it'd be okay because I'm like, my life is good. I have a girlfriend now. That fixes everything. I'm happy, right? But her and I, like, day in and day out, we would fight and break up and then kiss and make up the next day, right? Back and forth. But
Just
together
the
one day.
roller coaster of like codependency of like, all right, we're shooting on a high moment, but when we have the lows, we're going super low. So there's no
Yeah,
consistency to it. No gentle waves. It's like
exactly.
tsunamis.
Yeah, and after a while, the highs did not justify the lows anymore. Because at first, I'm like, oh, cool, I fucked up. But we could talk about it. Like, this is what I've always wanted, open, honest communication with a woman, But it's just like, yeah, but you wouldn't want it to that degree, right? It was day in and day out that this thing was happening. And so at the end of September last year, I'm like, you know what? I just pulled the trigger. I'm like, okay, let's email this woman, my therapist. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I just got off the phone with my girlfriend at the time. We just patched another fight up. And I'm just like, yeah, let's, I went through the whole screening process, answered the questions. And I said like, hey, I'm so sorry to schedule this last minute, but I would like to see you tomorrow afternoon or whatever. And yeah, so I accepted and I started therapy right there, mid October, beginning of October, 2021.
That's amazing, man. I'm so proud of you for going into therapy and kind of recognizing, and it's too, right? Like we kind of need, like for me, right? You got to have these kind of rock bottom moments or this kind of like, I need enough pain in order for me to change my behaviors and attitudes. Like if I don't have enough pain, if I'm like, I can deal with it, then I'm actually never going to change my like perspective or any like really do like the true kind of transformational change I need to actually heal and grow. One thing we always kind of connected on, because you've talked about kind of some girlfriends, is that I know we've talked a little bit about kind of like dating and relationships and a bit of the seduction community kind of stuff. Have you found any of those principles that you learned there, like applying to how you used them in your like kind of recovery with ADHD or dealing with your ADHD?
You mean like the pickup artist
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah, kind of some of those kind of like anything that you learned there that you applied to like help with your ADHD.
Not really, because I find that whole thing, not the whole thing, but a lot of it pretty scummy. I know like, hey, exude confidence and be interesting and all that stuff, but some of the pickup artist stuff that I learned was like the whole concept of negging, where you break a woman's spirit so you could rebuild it back up, and with backhanded compliments, which is what I gave my girlfriend. It was horrible. I would say, yeah. I would say the pickup artist stuff does not help the ADHD stuff at all, because one thing was like, I think one thing it taught was like, oh, if a girl rejects you, just think to yourself, oh, well, she's missing out anyway, and whatever, make it her problem. And for a long time, I used that very adamantly to manage my, RSD. But after a while, I'm just like, wait, no, I don't have to demonize the woman. I could just be like, okay, she just doesn't like me, and that's that. I don't have to make a value judgment on her part just because she doesn't like me. Maybe
Yeah.
we're just not a good fit.
Yeah, no, I like that because I found positives that I gained a lot about confidence in my own self, but there was a lot of, especially the negating and like the putting other people down kind of stuff that I found really
Yeah.
just like it was just it seemed almost counterproductive to me because it's like, all right, why would I treat someone how like treat someone even though I wouldn't want to be treated that way, right? Because I know from
Yeah.
my own sense of rejection, like for me though, it was interesting of where like it actually helped with my RSD a little bit because I don't know if you did any street approaching, but I was really good about like I learned how to do like daytime street approaching. And it was like learning how to build through my RSD of like, because the first one I'd be like, oh my God, I'm like, hi, whatever are you doing? And but by the 10th one, you know, like you're like, hi,
Yeah.
and then I'll be bye, and like run away. But like by the 10th one, I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I got used to like kind of like not feeling as rejected or like recognizing my feelings. And then it's funny though, because RSD for me is one of these things where once I can get used to something, but if it's out of left field that I'm not expecting, it will like hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, and it will just kind of throw me off. Um, I kind of want to transition a bit into because another thing that we have in common is stoicism, capital
Oh
S
yeah.
stoicism. So I would love to hear how did you find out about stoicism? When did you start kind of practicing it or learning about it?
When did I actually start? Because I've had Ryan Holiday's trilogy of books for a while from Daily Stoic. All I read was The Ego's the Enemy. I read that a long time ago, but then it's funny, like 2020 Christmas, my brother gave me Lives of the Stoics by Ryan Holiday and another author whose name I forget. And yeah, that book just sums up the lives of many Stoics and like their guiding principles. And like, well, these guys are freaking cool, right? Um, and there was this whole allure to Marcus Aurelius, who is like the last person after like 30 other guys and one woman that they talk about in that book. And then yeah, I just went to the rabbit hole when I finished or when I was reading that book because I was like making notes on them and on cue cards and putting them like in this box like Ryan Holiday does. And yeah, I just started reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and I've read a crap load of Seneca now. Of Shortness of Life was the first real philosophy book I read, and it's super short. You know, fittingly enough, on the shortness of life, a book is short, and it's just so funny because like he's just ranting about the stupid crap that people waste their time on. I get the sense that Seneca was like tempted towards cynicism because he was so cynical about the kind of things people waste their time on, right? But then, yeah, now I'm reading this six-pack book of his where it's like letters that he wrote to Lucilius, and I found those really helpful. And yeah, I just feel like I don't know about all the other ADHDers out there, but for me specifically, because I've been so hypersensitive throughout my entire life, stoicism is like the perfect antidote to everything that I've put up with in my life, especially because of like learning really toxic ways to deal with my pain and anger back in my younger days, right?
Yeah, it's that
So,
emotional pain,
yes.
not transformed, is transmitted, right? So we can feel that because I'm not sure about you. I'm the kind of guy be like, oh, that's fine. And it's like you're dropping in a Mentos before it like blows up, and it's just like builds, builds, builds. And then one little thing that had nothing to do with any of the other stuff sets me off, and then I just kind of go blowing up and crazy.
Same.
And how have you used Stoicism? What are some of the Stoic philosophies or principles that you've applied to your life that help with your ADHD?
Mm, Taking stock of the shortness of life is definitely one of the big ones because lifetime procrastinator up until like recently. I put a lot of stuff off. Um, I just think to myself like, hey, look, I might die tonight, so if I don't do this thing or work on it a little bit, even if it's just chapter one or whatever, that would be a crappy way to die if I didn't even do something about this project that I was working on. Like I get this anxiety when I'm about to finish a project, like that video fan fiction I made for my friend's video game. while I was making that for like a week or two, I'm like, frig, it would suck if I just died halfway through making this because I'm almost done, man. You know? So yeah, taking stock of the shortness of life is one thing, but the bigger thing is also for the emotional dysregulation stuff. That's been helpful a lot. Cause like yeah, like back in the pickup artist days, I would make it the girl's fault that she rejected me to manage my own sense of rejection. Like, oh well, you know what? I'm too good for her anyway, right? But
Would you
now I'm
say
trying to take.
I was gonna say, would you say stoicism has kind of helped you have a better like self-identity? Like you're able to identify with yourself versus like, when in like the pickup artist days where it's kind of like all on them, almost victim
Yeah,
mentality. It's there like this more of like empowerments of your own masculinity.
yeah. It's like it's creating a more objective way of looking at myself and life rather than, telling myself lies just to feel good about myself. Like, oh, I was too good for her anyway. Well, yeah. Funny enough, like after me and that girlfriend last year broke up, I got back in touch with this friend of mine that I've had for like 5 years or so now. And I think I talked about this in one of our bi-weekly calls. Yeah, I did for sure about RSD. Oh, I don't want to get into that either. It's just so much.
That's all right, but don't forget that
But
anyone watching this, it's in the men's ADHD sport group. We have a bi-weekly meeting. You can check it out in the events page. It is a fantastic thing. It's open to all the members of our group. Definitely go check it out. We also have Q&As that happen once a month as well. So don't forget to check that out. All right, plug for the group.
yeah, I definitely need that, man. Yeah, because we're walking embodiments of how to handle your ADHD, and might as well, right? Spread the good word. But yeah, so with stoicism, it helped me take that rejection because like I was trying to go for a rebound. Like at first, I just saw this friend as someone I often fall back to whenever like something goes wrong with other women. Like the first time I tried to like mac on her pickup artist style, I think oh yeah, I broke up with another girlfriend like many years ago, 2018, and then somewhere in 2019, I had a blind date that got canceled, and I felt kind of crappy about that. So again, I went to this friend to try to like, manage my anxiety by like flirting with her and getting rejected on purpose because as Seneca says, the expected blow lands the softest. And I talked about this in our last bi-weekly call where I would be so over the top with like Fresh Prince, Will Smith style of like pickup lines that are surefire ways to get rejected that I would use on this girl because we had like this little game of oh I'm gonna shoot for her and get shot down because it's at least it's expected and comfortable and normal, right? But fast forwarding to 2021, um, I was starting to like take the mask off a little bit on the pickup artist stuff because when I was getting back in touch with this friend, um, there was some old pickup artist crap that I was still kind of employing, but I was like feeling disgusted with myself, especially since I that played into turbulence with that girlfriend of mine in 2021. And with my friend though, when I told her how I felt about her, just saying that you know, I'm starting to see us as more than just friends, you know. Um, she said, "Yeah, hey, I really appreciate that, but I just see you as a good friend." I know my past self would have been like, yeah, well, my heart's too big for her anyway. She has a nice cold heart and she doesn't want me to melt it. That's her problem, right? But stoicism is just like, well, no, we're just not a good fit for each other. And I can look at it more objectively, where it's just like, she has her life, I have mine. We both had crappy relationships in 2021. And like, you know, now might not be the time for us to be together, if ever at all. And like for a long time, beginning of this year, I was really obsessed. I was like, oh, maybe somewhere down the line, she'll see how good of a friend I am, and that should translate to good boyfriend material. But now I'm just like, well, you know what, whether it happens or not, I'm more fatty, man. Love fate. It's like, well, I'm open to whatever. It's like obviously my preference is, yeah, this is the stoic mental gymnastics I go through
Yeah,
where
the
it's like,
letting go of like, all right, I can let it go. Like if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Either way,
yeah,
I'm
it's
gonna be okay with who I am.
exactly, yeah, being okay with who you are. Like that's another thing that stoicism has helped me with. It's like just because she rejected me, it's not a reflection of my value, nor is it a reflection of hers. That's another thing I had to learn because yeah, one
Say that
thing
one
I
more
was told
time because that was a great line. I think I'm going to use that. What was that again?
when somebody rejects you, it's not a reflection of your value, and nor is it a
Nor
reflection of theirs. Because like for a long time I thought it was a reflection of theirs, but that's another thing of like making, you know, negative value judgments that you should. Yeah, spoon drop. That's what's up. Yeah.
I don't have a mic, so
Just
I was.
pretend it's a mic, you guys. I would drop this, but it's pretty expensive. So
I was gonna say that looks like some good equipment there. So please don't do that. But we'll go with the
so
spoon
yeah,
drop. That's
yeah, exactly. So yeah, when that friend of mine rejected me, like, yeah, I could have. There was parts of my old self trying to be all like, oh yeah, my heart's too big for her. She's scared of how much love I could give her. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, it's just, you know, a relationship is just not what either of us need right now. It's just part of the journey. Like, just love your fate. And like, even my therapist said, like, she's just like, it's actually better that you didn't get a girlfriend out of this because at least you learned how to manage the rejection in a healthy way. And even bigger, that was the first time in my life where I was able to tell a girl how I felt about her without having to compete with another guy, first of all. And second of all, under the best possible circumstances. Because most of the girlfriends that I've had, those relationships did not start until some other guy started moving in on her. Like I would just be friends with a girl. We're hanging out all the time. There's even one girl that I would skip school with all day, every day. Freaking love her to bits still to this day. Um, yeah, I would be friends with these girls, but then as soon as some other guy starts moving in on her, that's when I step in and say, "Hey, I like you. Go with me instead." This is the first time where it's just like there's no other guy in the picture, and I'm not like distressed or anything, and like I'm not sad or desperate for love. I'm just like, you know, her and I were having a good time, gaming a lot and just talking stupid random crap. But you know what? I gotta tell her. I'm starting to see us as more than just friends. Blah blah blah. She rejected me, and it did hurt for like a second, but like, yeah, more stoicism. I'm like, let's keep this in check because I told her this just before like a gaming session of ours, and it's like, you know what? We still played for another 7 hours, you know, and talked for another 6 hours after the session was done. And it's like, see, look how much better it is when you don't take rejection personally, and look how much better it is when you value the person and the friendship more than the outcome that I was expecting. Because obviously I prefer, like she said, oh, I feel the same way about you. Let's start blah blah blah. I'm like, no, you know what? It's fine. We're still good friends, even to this day. And we have a mission, quote unquote, to beat this game that we both really, really love. And
and
that's
what's the
way more
game?
important. It takes two.
It takes two.
And
It takes
it's
two to make things go right. Sorry, I just that song popped in my
so
head.
true. It's so true. It is so
Yeah.
true.
I love
But
that
yeah,
story because I'm just gonna hop in there because I think it's like that lesson, right? It's the lesson of being vulnerable, of learning how to be kind of like, I'm gonna be honest with with what I am and how I'm feeling, right? Because I totally relate to because for so many years I always tried the best friend strategy, and the best friend strategy never works, right? Like it's as soon as like then they start dating someone else or want to date someone else, you try to jump in there, but they're like, but they've already seen you as a friend, that like they see you as a
mm,
Ken doll, right? That it's like and then learning how to like, no, this is who I am, here's my masculinity, take it or leave it. Okay, you can say no, let's go still play a game for 7 hours and rock it out, but at least you like learning the lessons in it, right? That's one of the big things I got from stoicism myself, was like, what did I learn from the experience, what can I gain from the experience
the
versus
obstacle's the way.
exactly, you know. And
Yeah.
it's so I think so hard for ADHDers too, because it's like we get so stuck on the obstacle of like, oh no, we got to give up, or I'm less than, or I'm not like, particularly I think with ADHD men, not man enough, right? Like, because we hear this,
Yeah.
man up, be masculine, be like, you know, be the John Wayne lower S stoic and like hold your
Hmm.
feelings in. And I find, just for me personally, I don't know if you've had this experience, the more times I get vulnerable and authentic, the deeper human connections I actually form.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure, for sure. I've stopped. I mean, I'm probably sure there's some disingenuous behaviors in myself still to this day, but I've greatly reduced how much that comes out. It's, it's a never-ending process. But yeah, the more real I am with people, like the better I've become, because part of the RSD and dealing with that is becoming a people pleaser. And that's what my therapist pointed out, was like, this is why you you morph yourself into whatever you think your girlfriends want you to be, because you don't know and love yourself enough. You just want to be whatever they want or you think they want. And that's why these relationships don't work out. And I've noticed that, like, yeah, when I am not my true genuine self in any of these relationships, um, in the moment, yeah, things are okay with the woman, but I start to feel shitty about myself because I'm betraying myself, and then that gets translated in passive aggression and being an asshole to my girlfriends. Yeah, so
Well, let me ask you
sorry,
this
what's the next?
question. It
Go
is
ahead.
it's a really simple one because you kind of touched on it a bit, because it's one of the things that I ask a lot of my clients when I kind of start off with is, do you love yourself? What is the relationship you have with yourself now versus like 16-year-old or 18-year-old you? How have you seen that grown? And like currently, how do you kind of see yourself, and do you love yourself? What's that relationship like? And what was the evolution from like age, 16, 18, from that kind of growth?
How much time do you have? Can we make this a 3 5 hour interview? Nah, I'll try to sum it up as best as I can. But yeah, lots of self-loathing when I was younger. I just thought I was like deficient because, like, oh, I can't pay attention. I'm scrawny and weak. I have a heart problem that I was born with. I can't do shit. All these other guys are better than me because they can do contact sports. Well, I can't, but I want to beat people up to prove that I can still do it. And yeah, I was risking my life getting into a lot of fights with bullies back in the day. But you know what? Those suspensions allowed me more video game and guitar time, so whatever. But anyways, yeah, my relationship with myself was just, is very turbulent when I was younger, because I just thought, like, I'm such a loser. I don't fit in anywhere. And then when I discovered like personal development in my 20s, it got worse actually, because I'm like, whoa, these are ways I could be, and I know I should be. I should all over myself when I was in my 20s. I'm like, you should be this, you should do that, right? And there's just this mantra I used to repeat in my head, was like, you knew better, but you didn't do better. What the fuck is wrong with you, Ryan? Because, like, I started holding myself to such a high standard when I saw what was possible for myself. And anytime I was authentic and like charming, charismatic, and lovable, I'd be like, yes, be more of that, Ryan. And then when I wasn't, I'm like, why the fuck are you being a loser again? Remember that time when this and that happened, Ryan? But I've since chilled chilled out, and like, just not holding myself to a neurotypical standard or even the unreasonable standard that I used to hold myself to. Now my relationship with myself is like more forgiving, more self-aware, more loving. um, if I make a mistake, I don't ruminate on it as much as I used to, because, like, oh my god, in my early 20s when I'd go out and hang out with people, I would say one of the dumbest things in some conversations, and I would be ruined for 2 or 3 weeks. Like, I can't go out. I'm so awkward and stupid, right?
And everyone's going to remember that one moment that I did, that one thing I said, and they're going to hold on to it, even though, like, I have this theory that people are innately selfish. It's not in a mean way, but like, we don't really recognize or know what everyone else is kind of doing. We'll hold on to more things. Oh, they must have remembered that thing. Half the time, they don't remember it.
They're more worried about their own mistakes. Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, now it's just like, hey, you know what? It's been a process. Like I said, I took on sales job for the specific reason to manage my social anxiety, and it worked, man. Like, the one job was before the escape room, was working at Hot Topic. It's like, hey, I like nerdy shit. Let's sell nerdy shit to nerds, right? My first task at that job was greeting people at the door for like the first hour of my shift. And like maybe the first 10-20 minutes was agonizing when people would ignore me or even mock me for saying, hey, buy one, get one half off, blah, 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 right? But by like a half hour, I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever. Some people are nice, some aren't. I got used to getting rejected at such a rapid pace. And like eventually, yeah, I got good at just talking to people, especially because it's nerd stuff, right? Yeah, my manager,
I'm
my
curious, what was
oh,
your
good.
favorite thing in Hot Topic? Was there a cool item or the weirdest item that you sold? Oh yeah, you have it, don't you? You have
Yeah, I don't
something.
have it right here, but I have a My Little Pony mug that I still drink coffee out of
Uh,
like 8 years later every morning. I wish I was here, I would show it. But yeah, that was my favorite thing, like My Little Pony merchandise, because I used to love that show back then. It's funny, yeah, my coworkers are like, oh, Marlon, you're like the most normal brony I've ever met. All the ones that come in here are like, weird and creepy and whatever. I'm like, yeah, because I don't identify as a brony. It's a show that I like, and that's that, right? Like when I was a kid, I used to love Sailor Moon. What do I call myself? A Moonie? It's like, no, I'm a guy who likes girly things, I guess. And to touch,
yeah, but
actually, to touch,
Sailor Moon was a really good show, though. I have to say,
hell yeah.
it was a very very good. Like, that's what one of the first shows that got me into anime or understanding a
Same.
bit. Yeah.
Badass. Such a badass show. And you know what? You mentioned masculinity and stuff earlier. I actually want to touch upon that. Like,
Yeah, go
yeah,
for
as an
it.
AD, yeah, it's like I grew up kind of confused. Like, I just like girly stuff, man. I like drama, I like romance, and Sailor Moon or whatever. My classmates, all the boys, are like, oh, you're gay. You like Sailor Moon. You're a fag, right? But I'm like, yeah, but I made friends with the cute Chinese girls, so on you guys, you know? And like, yeah, for a long time, I'm like, oh, I'm not man enough because I like all these supposed girly things. But now, yeah, going back to like my relationship with myself, it's like, yeah, I am a man. I could take charge when I need to. I can lead people, you know? And I have a masculine core. It's just, there's nothing wrong with liking a few girly things like My Little Pony and Sailor Moon. I also love freaking Daredevil, dark and gritty Daredevil on Netflix. Dude, my routine after a long escape room managing shift was watch Daredevil for an hour, watch all that gritty violence, and then wash my mind with colorful ponies talking about friendship and love for each other. Right? I just always loved having that duality within myself. I'm gonna watch crime drama, gritty violence, and then touchy-feely emotional stuff. So yeah, my relationship with myself is like, hey, this is all of you, all of it, right? I'm not trying to separate these things and think that I'm less or more because of whatever I'm into.
That's interesting. You bring up the duality. I don't know if you read this book, Way of the Superior Man by David Data.
I have it right there.
You have
Yeah.
it there, and I love how he talks about in there. If you guys haven't read that book, definitely check it out. You can even find free audiobooks on YouTube as well on it. And what I love he talks about there is like, all right, both, and I think it should be called We Have the Superior Human and not man, just to give it more of kind of like a
An
non-gender bias,
inclusive thing. Yeah.
an inclusive thing, because they think, but man as in human man, or just human, where they say like your gender, all right, you have 80%, masculine,
Yeah.
20% feminine, or you're, 90% or 80% feminine,
Yeah, there's
20%
gender
masculine.
and then there's like essence. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could be a masculine woman and that's okay, or a feminine guy. But, it doesn't make you less or more of whatever. It's just, yeah.
And
Typically, if you're a born man, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was gonna say, because I noticed that with my relationship with my fiance is that there are times when she's so like she gets really, because she's a small business owner, so she'll be really in her masculine, and then I naturally fall into my feminine. And then so we have to sometimes, all right, we're gonna reverse it here. And we recognize like, okay, all right, I need to step out of my mask. She needs to step out of masculine, and then I can then I'll fall in there. And it's recognizing as we kind of go through these kind of levels as it kind of flows, because there are times where I feel really effeminate, and like you too. I was always told like body size. I think we're both kind of tallish, skinny dudes. So we were and
Oh,
I
you're
liked,
tall. I'm only like 5'4", so
but like skinny dudes, right? Like we're skinny
yeah.
dudes, and then so if you like anything that was girly, you're like, or that was considered girly, oh, you must be gay. But what I always thought was really interesting though, is that if you actually wanted to like meet women, you go do the things that they're doing, and then you'll have a more chance of meeting women.
That's exactly it. That's the number one thing my longest term girlfriend appreciated about me. It's like, oh, you're like my journal. I could just tell everything to. Because it's like, yeah, I'm a sensitive guy. I understand emotions, and I'm gonna take yours into consideration. And like, there's nothing I could do that as well as take care of her as a man, right? So yeah, take her out to places. I made her soup when she was sick one time and took care of her. It was just, yeah, it's just it's a constant flux of, yeah, masculinity, femininity. When I'm working and I have jobs, it's like, yeah, I'm in my masculine core, taking charge. I'm penetrating the world, as the Arthur says, right? And then when I get burnt out and I do my mental health breaks for a year or two, I become the feminine and I'm receiving, right? I'm letting the world penetrate me, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's finding that flow and being okay with like being able to kind of go with the roles, right? This is where I
Yeah.
find with like, particularly when we talk about like, I have this thing about the divine masculinity, and I find that, and that's just my terminology, to be the counteractive, or like the polar opposite of toxic masculinity, right?
Yeah.
Finding that there's a positivity to our masculinity, especially as ADHD men, because I find a lot of the ADHD men I talk to are hyper, like, because of our nervous system and how we're built, we're more emotionally in tune, and we're more empathetic, right? Like there's a lot more empathy involved, a lot more tapping into that feminine side. And it's not in a negative way. I find that is one of my greatest strengths, to be able to actually really connect with
Same here.
others, and being able to really actually show vulnerability without actually feeling weird in my skin. And it's funny because I'll put a vulnerable post up, or I'll talk about something vulnerable, and I'll have these dudes come out to me afterwards, just be like, oh my God, that's so like amazing. I can never do that. And these are like these big muscular like gym guys. I'm
Yeah.
like you're looking at me as the masculine one for this courage over like, and I just find it heartbreaking, because it's this, I find this idea of, because I think men, in this kind of day and age, I think it's us finding a redefining of what it means
Yeah.
to be a man in this day and age. So I would love to hear, what do you think it means to be a spiritual man, a stoic man? What does it mean to be a man in we're in the 21st century? Yeah, in the 21st century.
Before I answer that, actually, it's funny that you brought that up, because when I was into like the whole My Little Pony thing, I saw the documentary, and it was this big surly guy. He was like a biker, lots of tattoos, and he liked My Little Pony. I'm like, what? This is so weird and so cool. Like just those expectations being flipped. Like I even had like a bodybuilder friend who was, yeah, super masculine to the core for sure. But then it was just so weird because I looked up to him, like, because he was so stoic and like he didn't let much bother him. But then he admitted to me that I understand women better than he does, and he applauded for me. He applauded me for that. I'm like, that meant a lot to me, especially coming from him. I'm like, wow, I guess I do. He's like, how the hell do you navigate these weird conversations with him? It feels weird talking about emotions and all that stuff. I'm like, I don't know, I just do. So I
And isn't that funny
guess,
too, right? Like here's like the big masculine guy, where your perception of like, and he's like admiring you because you have the ability to go do the approach, go be able to actually talk to a woman, talk to a stranger, and get out into this skill set that he's like, oh, like I can never
yeah,
do that. And it's like fun. And you're like, wait, but you're like the typical like Arnold Schwarzenegger dude. Like what?
exactly. Yeah, I was just surprised. I'm like, when I was first getting to know him, like, oh, he must get all the babes or whatever, right? But like, what I loved about that guy was that he was also vulnerable too, saying like, I wasn't always this cool. I was kind of a loser before, and like through therapy and working out, I gained confidence and whatever. And yeah, but anyways, before I like overshare about his life, where I probably shouldn't, even though no one knows who he is and who I'm talking about. To answer your question about like redefining like how to be a man in our modern society, what does that mean now? I think it means taking ownership over who you are without any shame or guilt, all loving all the parts of yourself without feeling like you need to hide them or overcompensate for them. Just be like, hey, look, sometimes, hey, I could bench press 1,000 pounds or whatever, but I also love rom-coms. It's being okay to say those kind of things.
Boom, you got another spoon drop.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that, right? Because it's the totality of who we are as human beings, right? Like we have a lot of like, as we're asking these, these questions that we come up with Me Too movement and everything else. And I've always just found this of like, what does it mean to be a man? And this is why I also wanted to talk a little bit about like the like the kind of the dark side, the red pill kind of stuff of the
Yeah.
pickup kind of thing, because I think they're all just trying to ask the question of what does it mean to be in this ever evolving, changing society and world? What does it mean, and where do we find our place in it, right? Like, and it's understanding and being self-advocacy for ourselves. So many men suffer in silence. So being able to be the
Yeah.
examples to like stand up. I wanted to touch in a little bit about your journaling because you mentioned that a couple of times. How has journaling kind of helped with your mental health and with your ADHD?
It sure as hell slowed my freaking mind down a lot because, my hands definitely can't keep up with my mind. So when I handwrite journals, it's basically forcing myself to think about one linear thing in a linear way rather than, going all over the place. Looking at paragraphs, even like just even that visual indication of here's a new topic or here's a new aspect of that topic. It's helped me be more structured in the way I communicate with others too. And like I've just got really addicted to the essay format of writing, where it's like you bring up your three main points. Typically, it's three. First, like you kind of sum them up real quickly, and then you go into detail in the body, and then you re-sum it up at the end with better understanding. I do something similar with that. Maybe it's three or more, sometimes less, when it comes to handwriting as well as just communicating with others. That's for handwriting journaling. But something I admitted to in one of the biweekly calls was doing audio journals where I walk around my neighborhood at like midnight, sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning, and I put on my Raycon earphones or earbuds, put on my voice memo on my phone, and just talk for like 30 to 60 minutes. And that's kind of like my rough draft process where like I'll do that for days on end, sometimes for like months before I actually sit down and write everything I've learned. So yeah, how it's helped me, it's like for the torrent of a million thoughts going in my head, let's walk around for 30 to 60 minutes talking as loud and as fast as possible. Even my mouth can't keep up with my stupid brain. But you know what? We'll try. We'll freaking try. Right. And then sometimes I'll listen back to it like, oh, dear God, what am I talking about? Why did it take so long to get to the point? Or why did I get so repetitive? And then once I, examine all those, either through re-listening to them or just reflecting on what I remember talking about most, that's when I sit down and handwrite it all. Like even just today, like I haven't handwritten since April, and I'm gonna have to write about May, June, and July starting this month. And that's how much journaling has helped me. It's like just processing my thoughts and emotions in a way where it's like, here it is in a visual landscape instead of keeping it in here. Because like if I just keep it in here, I'm anxious. I can't pay attention in conversations or in games or when I'm trying to create things. So like it helps a lot, especially before creative stuff, to kind of like self-reflect to get my emotional stuff out of the system so it doesn't hinder my creativity or maybe even helps it because I've got better understanding of my emotions, as well as yeah, it just frees up my mind to focus on the more fun aspects of creating things and engaging with the world.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I love that because like I love doing voice notes too. And then I put it through my dictate app so that it types it out. And it's just seeing
I
like
should do that too.
because then it's being able to see our patterns, right? Being able to see our patterns. So we kind of like, all right, because when we're stuck in our own patterns, we actually can't see our patterns. We can't like we become so repetitive at doing a thing or a trauma that we don't realize what we're actually doing. Um, to kind of bring it back to ADHD a little bit, I would love to hear like your top kind of 5 maybe tips or strategies that you do on a, or like top like 2, like 3 to 5, whatever you feel comfortable with, that you use kind of that helps with your ADHD on a daily basis.
Oh, damn. Can I give 20? No, I'm kidding. um, yeah, journaling obviously is a big one. I know exercise helps a lot, like yoga, because like it's like, hey, no time to get in your head. You gotta keep balance, or you're gonna fall. Focus on your breath. And I've been reading some articles and research about how physical exercise can really help with ADHD. So that's one thing. Yeah, exercise, yoga, and walks every day. Um, Even if I let my mind wander as much as it does during yoga and walking, it's like, yeah, but at least I'm not sitting still and ruminating and just laying in bed like I do sometimes, where, I'm just letting these thousands of thoughts consume me. It's like, well, they're still there, but they're quieter now because my focus is on not falling off my yoga mat, you know, crossing the street safely when I'm going for walks, not getting run over. Like that cat I saw get run over a few weeks ago. It was so sad. But
Oh.
it was during an audio journal too. I think if I listen back to it, I can remember the moment. I'm like, oh shit. Because like I'm like, yeah, what I should do with my life is this, and that. Holy crap! Did that just happen? But yeah, going back to your question. What
Oh,
also helps is vision board. I don't know if I could show it somewhere there. Yeah,
I
it's right
love
there.
vision boards. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, man, but I have a tendency to daydream a lot. I found myself daydreaming for like 20 to 30 minutes sometimes, especially this year. It was just so bad. And I'm like, oh my God, I wasted so much time, imagining this perfect life that I did nothing to work towards that. So to offload my daydream mind, I look uh, at that vision board, and like I hone in on specific things to daydream about. And it's not just about like, oh, my life would be so good if I had this, and that. I also imagine myself putting in the hard work of like getting there. It's like, yeah, this is the goal you want to achieve, but remember, I even fantasize about myself struggling, right? That's one thing that I help with. And I found that having done that for a week now, just meditating on my vision board before my day starts rather than what I used to do, which is when my day was ending, it just helps a lot because I still daydream, but like not as much because it's like I already taxed the hell out of that part of my brain from looking at that. And then
And
once,
everything else aligns into that, right? You start to see the synchronicities line up because you've kind of
yeah,
put that in the front of your head. Oh, I love that.
yeah, it's funny because like there's one section there where it's like, oh, I want more friends that are like that I can relate to. I meditated on this interview in particular, looking at that picture. I'm like,
Oh, oh, you gotta
because
love that. Oh,
it's a picture of people having a barbecue. I'm just like, man, this ADHD men's support group, we gotta have a like in-person barbecue one of these days. That'd be freaking cool. So that's one thing. That's another thing that I do. Then after that, it's like a cold shower. Not right away, obviously. I do like the washing stuff
do you
first
do
in
the
hot
Wim?
water. But out,
Do you do Wim Hof?
what's Wim Hof? What do you mean? What's that?
That's the cold shower technique. It was the guy like that came up with the whole cold like the cold shower stuff. Wim Hof, I think that's what it's called.
Is that what's? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess the knowledge is passed on through different people. That it's just become a common thing. Yeah, cold showers, guys. ADHDers, man. I swear to God, it changes everything. Because when I'm in a hot shower, it's like my mind keeps racing of like creative ideas and other things, which are great. But then sometimes if I'm there too long, I ruminate on some things because I'm too relaxed. So when I turn that knob down to cold, it's like, oh, you can't think right now. All you can focus on is breathing in and out and not shivering, right? So I do that about for like 2 to 5 minutes. And like whatever I was like concerned about before that cold part of the shower, gone, gone. Because I'm just like, oh, goddamn.
That's a great
Um,
way of getting out of your head. I love that as a technique of like, all right, you want us because I know a lot of people ask about racing thoughts. How do you get rid of them? The cold shower, I like it. That is definitely something we'll have to throw in there. Could you, before as we finish up here, one other thing that that you shared recently that I was just really that I loved was your structure system. I know we talked about it in the Q&A the other day. Could you go into like your structure? And before you go into it, I just want to mention my vision board. I use my vision board as my desktop screensaver, as my desktop. So
Smart.
every time I'm looking at I'm always on my computer, I'm always seeing my vision boards just so I get all that
Ooh,
visualization.
damn, I should do that too. Yeah. Oh, what was the question? You know, about the well-being
Sorry, I
checklist?
it's the
No,
ADHD where I'm like,
I know.
ah!
I get it. I totally understand, man.
So if you can go
Yeah.
into talking about the structure that you've put in place with your goals, so where you have you sent out you showed your spreadsheet with like your different, like each day you try to get to 100% and like how you came up with that system.
It's actually much thanks to my brother, who's a life coach, and he has this thing called the well-being checklist, where you write out a list of 10 things you do to take care of yourself, and score yourself on that very like on a weekly basis. Because it's like, yeah, you could go. His philosophy is basically success without self-love is a failure, and so it's like, yeah, if you're not,
Ooh,
yeah,
say that one more time because that deserves another one. Ready? Let's go for it.
success without self-love is a failure. Yeah, because it's like, what's the point of enjoying any of that if you're not taking care of yourself and you can't even appreciate the fruits of your labor, right? If you're always reaching, it's like, do you have time to receive and get into your feminine core to receive that thing, right? Right?
Uh,
Oh, freaking love this conversation so damn much. I can't wait to watch this back. But yeah, to get into that system that my brother developed of the well-being checklist. Yeah, like I mentioned in the Q&A, it used to be like all over the place until I started realizing like certain things kind of go hand in hand with each other. Like if I look back at my old stuff back in June, it's like, oh, yoga's number one while listening to music is number five. It's like I always check those off at the same time anyway, because I don't know, man. I don't know about you, but exercise is really freaking boring. I don't like doing it, but I know it's good for me, right? I just push myself to do it because it feels good afterwards. But during it, it's like, oh man, that's right. All this lifetime of injuries, it sucks to feel all that, right? So I gotta listen to music to kind of tune some of the shame that goes with, getting into a car accident, breaking my hands from playing guitar and video games too aggressively, and I stretched that all out during yoga. So I was like, let's listen to music so I don't think about those times I destroyed my body, right? So yeah, anyways, back on track. Jesus, ADHD. um yeah, over time, the past couple months, I started realizing maybe I should put this list in a chronological order. So from 1 to 10, what I have is, let's see, wake up before noon because I'm a night owl. I don't sleep until maybe like 3 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. But I noticed that if I wake up before noon, I have a lot more motivation to do number two, which is yoga. And so while my mind and my actual body are too breathless to think, I go over to my vision board, and in that state of like post yoga clarity, I look at my vision board and do that thing I described of
yeah.
like getting my daydreaming out of the way. And then after the daydreaming, because I think about the challenges I'm going to go through and trying to achieve these goals, I start to get anxious, right? I'm like, oh crap, but it's gonna be so hard, right? So that's why when I go into the shower, I do the cold shower to offset some of the negative thoughts that come with accepting the challenges that will come with trying to strive for my goals. And number five is what I'm doing right now. Actually, is my therapist gave me this auditory bell ring that rings every 8 seconds. It's supposed to help ADHDers pay attention more. If you have that in the background, if I have in the background anyway, hearing that ding sound every 8 seconds reminds me to be present. If I find myself getting distracted, I just breathe in and out in sync with how long that thing rings. And before I even put that on, actually, I do a 5-minute meditation, which I should record a thing to do for the group because my therapist gave me permission to share it with you guys. It's an ADHD specific meditation that she taught me that she created. So I'll share that later. But yeah, 5 is that ADHD bell and the meditation, and I usually have that on for 2 to 4 hours while I do number 6, which is cultivate creativity. So it's like working on a novel or a video. And then once I am like super satisfied with myself having engaged my creativity, I'm like, now I feel like I could, you know, interact with the world. Because I told this to my brother and the other guys in our life coaching group, was like, I feel like I can't show my face to anyone until I've expressed myself creatively. Because I just feel like all that pent up anxiety. Here's another tip for ADHDers: all that pent up anxiety is probably it's just unspent energy. And if you spend that energy on something creative, you will feel a lot better. Trust me. Even it's still gonna be there, the anxiety of like your life, but it's gonna be much quieter and much easier to handle when you've done something for yourself creatively or well-being wise. But anyways, to top that all off, yeah, that's number 6. And then number 7 is engaging conversation, which is what we're doing right now. This has been one of the best conversations I've had the past month. So I really appreciate you reaching out, Dave, man. This is amazing. And yeah, once I got that out of my brain, all the communication and taking in other people's thoughts, then it's like, that was cool. But now it's time to read a book. So I read more structured thoughts rather than off the cuff stuff. Then, yeah, number 9 and 10, go for a walk, do some self knowledge. Number 10 is self knowledge. That's when I do the audio journals when I go for walks. So those are the top 10 things that I do to manage my ADHD. And so far today, I think I am, let's see, 60% done. Now 70 because of this conversation.
That is amazing. I love that. And I find that the bell thing that you mentioned really interesting, because when I was a chef for many years, and when I'd get on the line and we would get busy, you'd always have the ticket machine go off. And so you're always constantly hearing this ticket machine. And it wasn't necessarily 8 seconds, but it's like sometimes it'd go like once a minute. So, and it was weird because it's that ticket machine would get me back into presence of like, oh crap, I gotta like make these dishes now, right? So instead of thinking, all right, I got this to do, it's like it brings me back into process. I'm gonna like mess with that 8 second bell idea. I really love that, to just help bring focus and to bring yourself back into presence. Another thing I really love about your list there is a combination of things that help build a fulfilling and fulfilled life, right? To have a life that you love, that covers you have your social aspect, you have your mental aspect, you have your spiritual aspect, you're covering all the aspects of daily kind of living. Like one of the things that's kind of like on my list that like I use my fiance as a reminder. It's, I know, a dumb one, but brushing my teeth, because I always forget to brush my teeth, right? So it's like learning to have those signals that go off, and then it flows my day without feeling like I'm having a choppy day, and everything kind of, like we were talking before, right? Instead of the tornadoes of like the going crazy ups and downs, everything kind of now. I'll bust out my pop and locking skills there.
Oh, she's popping and locking. Holy crap.
uh, Alrighty, so we're just getting to the end there. Marlon, if anyone wanted to reach out to you, do you have any kind of social medias that you'd want to share, or just maybe just on Facebook, or is there anything else that like to share some of your writings or any other stuff that you want people to follow you?
Yeah, the only social media I use is Facebook, so you could just find me there in the group. I post quite often and respond quite often there. As for like my writing, I have a website called yourrighttolive.com, yourwritetolive.com. And that's basically where I write about personal development. And it used to be about like writing fiction writing tips, but I'm trying to like, you know what? I've always had this thing of like, here are fiction writing tips, but here's how you apply that to real life, because fiction is really more of a demonstration rather than an escape for real life. So yeah, you can see me there. You can see my posts there. I write about a lot of cool things. At least I think they're cool. I just deconstruct art and the art of being a human being on yourrighttolive.com.
Awesome. I will definitely check that out. And we're definitely going to have a conversation, private conversation, because I'm in the process of writing a memoir book called Adventures of a Skinny
Ooh,
Chef. And I'm taking different kind of stories from my life, a few recipes in there. And yeah,
ooh.
we'll have a whole nother conversation
Dude,
on that one.
as a former writing coach, I would love to talk about that with you.
Oh,
And I could probably help you out, like structure that too, you know?
yeah, that'd be fantastic. I
Uh,
also just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today, and also thank you for all the value that you give to the ADHD men's support group. I'm so grateful to have you on as part of the admin mod team. You really do add a lot of value to the group. You're a strong voice. So if anyone's, definitely reach out, give Marlon a follow, check out his blog and his website. And yeah, with that, I just want to wish you guys all a great, if not better day.
cool. Thanks, man. Have a good one.
You too.